Alexandria Ocasio Cortez went from quietly tending bar to loudly challenging the establishment in Congress and on the national political stage. The Point starts right now. She's known as AOC to most of America, a congresswoman who is not afraid to ignore the party line. She's here to talk about the many big issues confronting Washington and the nation. And the biggest issue right now is immigration. Nobody's happy. Everybody's unhappy. Everybody's worried. What should President Biden be doing?
You know, I think it's not just about President Biden, but it's also about Congress. You know, our government and our governance. It's the president, it's the Senate, and it's the House. First thing that we need to do, I think, is actually be able to provide the resources so that our system, as it's currently designed, can function. Right now, because of a Republican-controlled House and so much of what's been going on, some of these basic systems are not even being processed. We don't have our judges to process these visa applications.
Good point.
We don't have our actual paperwork processing so that people can get work permits, do the things that they need to do to get on their feet and not have to rely on our systems. Those haven't been funded. So we need to do that. But then most importantly, we actually need to provide a true path to citizenship in this country and return to a time because we weren't always like this, return to a time where path to citizenship is accessible so that people can actually work quickly, get on their feet, find a job, and support their family.
But some people who have already come here and have gone through the long path of citizenship are resentful of efforts to make it quicker for newer arrivals. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, you know, I think it's a normal process. Like we see this with student loans too. Some people say, I paid my student loans, why should someone else get forgiveness? But I don't think that because things were disorderly in the past, that should be a reason why we shouldn't fix them moving forward.
But would you shorten the path to citizenship?
I think we need to clarify it. We need to make it easier. We have millions of undocumented people in this country. A lot of people who, by the way, started on a legal pathway and then became undocumented because our system is so difficult to navigate. I think it's important to make it easier, especially that first rung of just being able to get a work permit so that you can legally be employed.
So why do you think the president has been so reticent to provide aid to New York City, which has taken a huge number of the migrants who have come here?
Yeah, you know, I think in the conversation about immigration in this country, it gets so dominated by the border. And so there's so much momentum to trying to provide tons of money, sometimes more money than they can even spend in a given fiscal year at the border. And the idea of redirecting those resources to the people and the communities that are actually absorbing these migrant populations is more new. But it is happening. You know, we've secured over $140 million to contribute to New York City's response.
But that's like a drop in the bucket of what Mayor Adams says he needs to spend.
Right. We definitely need more. I also think that we need to really open the books on New York City's fiscal operation and what we're spending and how we're spending it in terms of not just migrant response, but in general. But, you know, so I think there are things we can do better as a city, and I absolutely believe that more resources, we've been getting more resources, but definitely more to New York City from the federal government.
So you're questioning the way the mayor has spent money? You think he's not spent it wisely?
Well, I think when we talk about billions of dollars and these figures that the mayor is using.
12 billion.
Right. These figures that the mayor is citing and using, I think we need to show our work for that, especially as elected representatives. Our job is to go get that money. And so we've been going out to get that money, but we need to show our work too when we go to the federal government and say, this is how this money's being used, this is where it's going to, this is what justifies that figure.
So you want a fiscal accounting from Mayor Adams as to where the money's going and to see if it could be spent more efficiently?
I think, you know, I think there's that. I think also when we're talking about this current environment of budget cuts, we need to be really certain that this is necessary, and we need to really show our work with that. And so, I know the city controller has been doing a lot of oversight work, and the controller's numbers sometimes are different from the mayor's numbers. And I think that's an important discrepancy for us to reconcile.
Well, the kinds of cuts that the mayor has called for that are most upsetting people are the cuts to police officers. Are you afraid that this could compromise public safety in New York City? Well,
I think also it's those cuts, also the cuts to schools, libraries, parks. These, the moment we start talking about budget cuts, I think we need to take that very seriously, because any extra dollar above what is necessary to be cut is something that's not going to investing in our city. And so that's why I think it's important for us to assess these numbers when it comes to public safety. At the same time, we also have record numbers. We've had budget increases when it comes to the police department. And so, there's a balance there. I do think that some of the areas that are seeing some of the most extreme cuts, parks, schools, libraries, we really need to address why that's justified and look at the numbers behind that.
Do you think that there was a political consideration that the mayor made cuts that would get people most upset in order to get more money from Washington?
I can't speak to the mayor's calculus and what motivates what. I do think that there are multiple ways to balance a budget. One can be in budget cuts, and the other can be in figuring out how we raise revenues. We have enormous amounts of wealthy people in New York City, and the fact that these cuts were considered, but revenue raising for the wealthiest people did not seem to be considered. I think we really need to make an assessment about that, and because working people are hurting right now, and to cut the resources that everyday people already have, I don't think is the right direction if there's any way to avoid it.
So you're talking about tax cuts for the 1%?
Yeah, we have an enormous taxes on the 1%. We have a housing crisis in the city. Huge areas of Manhattan are essentially empty because people are having second, third, fourth homes that are not being occupied, not contributing to the city's economy. Meanwhile, everyday people can't find a place to live because they can't find an affordable place to live. And so I think it's important for us to figure out, how do we move the city in the direction of making it more livable for the people who work here and live here.
So are you really talking about like the targeted real estate tax hikes for like people who live like on Billionaires Row and those expensive apartments, so that you wouldn't increase real estate taxes on everybody, just on those people who have the very expensive homes?
Right, and that's just one avenue, right? That's just one avenue to look at. There are plenty of other ways to, explore how we find that solution. But the fact that the immediate go-to and that the first thing on the chopping block is kids' schools and our parks and the basic things that go to our functioning, which all of those things go to public safety, right? Kids being able to have a proper education, summer youth employment programs so that teenagers aren't just hanging out during the summertime. All of these things contribute to a safer city, and it's not just, this is not just a discussion about police cuts, but cuts to our parks, cuts to our schools. All of that contributes or doesn't to a safe environment in our city.
Do you think that the immigration issue is going to cost President Biden his re-election?
I think that the immigration issue is certainly important, but I think as well that when it comes to the everyday average person, when I wake up in the morning, when my cousins, when my neighbors wake up in the morning, we think about how are we going to get to work, put food on the table, pay our rent, and maybe see a doctor, go on vacation, or save up if you can, if you're lucky enough. And so I think that that's the most important issue. Of course, there are many others: immigration, climate, so many others. But I think that the president has worked very hard, has had one of the most productive legislative presidencies in modern history, passed the Inflation Reduction Act. Inflation, while it's still a problem, it is going down. The rate is going down. And we have record job levels that we've never had. And so it's not to say everything is roses, but it's to say that we're making real progress here, and that, you know, immigration is absolutely something for us to address. The way we address it, in my view, is with a Democratic Congress and presidency that actually addresses a path to citizenship.
Some Democrats don't think he's the best person to run at the top of the ticket. How do you feel?
I mean, I think at this juncture, the filing deadlines for states have passed. I think it's completely healthy to have a conversation about candidates, etc. That conversation has happened. The time for that conversation has happened. And listen, if you think you can do a better job, you put your hat in the ring. And right now, we have the candidates that we have, and President Biden is not only our candidate, but his presidency and his first term have been legislatively productive. And there are absolutely things that people can take issue with. It's normal to.
Okay.
But, you know, to say that, you know, I don't think we should give short shrift to what has actually been accomplished.
All right, well, it's time for a break, but we'll be back with much more from Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. We're back with the outspoken Congresswoman who represents Queens and the Bronx. So Israel has been a very hot-button topic. I wonder how you feel about our aid package and whether the considerations, the worries that you have mean that we might want to cut back our aid package to Israel.
I think so. And I know there's an enormous amount of... I want to acknowledge that this is such an active and sensitive conversation in the world, in the country, especially in our city. But I think that what we are seeing happen with so many innocent people being killed in Gaza, and of course the horrific bloodshed that happened on October 7th as well. I think a major concern that we have right now is the lack of a plan from Netanyahu's government, the excessive and indiscriminate violence that we are seeing.
So you say cut the aid to force him to do something?
I think that when we talk about additional military assistance, this is not just about what Israel's doing. This is really a conversation about us and the United States. And I don't believe that the United States should supplement military assistance in places of grave human rights violations. That's not just my belief. That's the current law on the books. And that is what is happening. And it is currently the law that we cannot provide military aid in those environments. And so I think what is in adherence with the law is to currently add conditionality, and also if Netanyahu's government is not going to slow down, we cannot be complicit in that.
So you've called for a ceasefire. You've also said that you support the creation of a Palestinian state, which has put you in the crosshairs of a number of Jewish groups who have vowed to spend millions and millions of dollars to defeat members of the so-called squad. I wonder how you feel about that, because you're definitely in their crosshairs.
Yeah, you know, I'm also proud to have the support of Jewish organizations that believe in human rights for all people and understand that the path to a lasting peace is in dignity for both Palestinian and Israeli families, but particularly in ending the injustices that Palestinians face. Now, when it comes to, you know, how I feel about this challenge, it's no secret that standing up to established powers puts a target on your back. And that's a big reason why people don't do it.
But see, they're saying that you're fomenting anti-Semitism. Do you accept that, reject that? How do you feel?
I reject it wholeheartedly, because I believe that the idea that standing up for human rights is anti-Semitic is an appalling allegation. And in fact, some of the people that are some of the most righteous human rights supporters that I know are Jewish brothers and sisters and neighbors. And so the idea that to stand for Palestinian dignity has anything to do with the criticism of Jewish identity, I think, and I think we all know that. I think our Jewish community, our Palestinian community, we know to separate individuals and identity from governments. And Palestinians are not Hamas, and Jewish people and Israeli citizens are not the Netanyahu government.
But do you think that these activists and their multi-million-dollar campaign will be successful in defeating some members of the squad? Jamal Bowman, for example.
You know, it poses a real threat. You know, politics and big money in politics is a big thing. And this is what we do when we stand up to big oil. This is what we do when we stand up to big pharma. And this is what we do a lot of times when it comes to standing up to a military industrial complex. And it does put a target on your back politically. I think that this year, you know, is a time for New Yorkers to say, do I want big money to decide my representation, or do I want to decide my representation? And with individuals like Jamal Bowman, who's one of the most fantastic representatives that we have seen in this state in years, you know, we want to make sure that it's New Yorkers deciding who they send to Congress and not special interests.
But people would say that Jamal Bowman's Democratic opponent, George Latimer, is also a good candidate. So,
and that's what campaigns are for, right? And I'm looking forward to supporting Jamal Bowman. I'm looking forward to visiting some of my own stomping grounds in Westchester, and talking to neighbors and communities and having people excited about supporting him again, as well as many others.
I wanted to ask you, go back a little bit and talk about presidential politics. We only have a couple minutes left, but I wondered about this move by former Senator Joe Lieberman to support something called the No Labels Party, and he's trying to get people on the ballot in all 50 states, and it would be a bipartisan slate, a Democrat and a Republican. Do you think that's going to hurt? Who's that going to hurt?
Well, I think we have to be realistic about our current process. And listen, I stand up to my own party quite often. I disagree with my own party quite often. And I think in a lot of contexts, third parties are great. I mean, you know, in New York City.
Will the third party candidate this time hurt the Democrats or the Republicans?
Well, I think a third party on a presidential ballot is unproductive. And you know, it could hurt a Democrat. It could also hurt a Republican. But at the end of the day, I think what is most important is that if we want to actually take on the structure of a two-party system, we have to start from the bottom up. And, you know, in New York City, we have the Working Families Party, we have other parties, but in other states, you know, I don't think that it starts with the presidential election. I think it starts with our own communities and having that conversation.
And just really quickly, so do you think that they're going to actually succeed? You got about 10 seconds.
I mean, we're going to work so that they don't. So, no.
And on that note, we're going to leave it there for now, but our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. Thank you for joining me. Conservative, progressive, liberal, what does it all mean? And does it matter? New Yorkers are weighing in on your point. What does it mean to be a conservative?
Oh, gosh.
I wouldn't really be able to tell you that because I'm not one.
Conservatives used to represent ideas of like Reagan around small government, around efficient taxation, things of that nature.
Tight with the money, strong defense.
Well, to continue with more traditions, probably.
The one that supports things that us as they are and doesn't want to develop society towards a better end.
And they don't want to pay for public programs, or they don't want a lot of money to go towards it. But I also feel like there's like a lot of sort of performative morality.
Doesn't allow anybody else to have their own thoughts, freedoms.
It means to be extremist.
I think conservative is really conflated with MAGA right now because we have such a polarized climate.
Is that the same thing as being a Republican?
It's almost worse because they think they're allowing freedoms, but they're just as bad.
The Republican Party is now a party of Donald Trump. It's a cult, and it has nothing to do with conservatism.
I think of it on the surface all as kind of one big blanket of something that I don't associate with.
Is it the same as being a Republican?
Pretty much.
Oh, definitely not.
I think that many Republicans are conservative, but I also think that many Democrats are also conservative. It's not a political party thing.
Republican's just a party, so they can change what they want whenever.
What does it mean to be a progressive?
Progressive means you still believe that we have a collective obligation toward each other.
Progressive, I think more Democrat.
We want to move things in a forward position rather than go back to some regressive time.
What does it mean to be a progressive?
Giving away everybody's money.
That we should pay taxes to support a government that helps all of us, whether it's schools, roads, subways.
Progressive is the opposite of conservative. You want change. You want things to change.
Do political parties matter anymore?
Absolutely.
Well, they sure do.
Participation of people in political parties are important because are the base of democracy.
We don't have a direct electorate with a proportional representation system, such that a political party will highly influence your ability to be elected.
You need to be united in a lot of ways, otherwise your power is limited, you know. It's like being in a union.
I think if you're not in a political party, it's really hard to get elected.
I think they matter to most people, but for me, it depends who's running.
And you just vote the person you think is best no matter what the party?
Absolutely. 100%.